So my name is Mathiason. I work at Finance Uncovered and with Sonozo, the West African Investigative Centre, and L'Economiste du Faso in Burkina Faso. We produced a story nearly 2 years ago, which revealed that citizens of Burkina Faso missed out on an estimated $16.5 million in gold mining royalties that could have funded vital public services. And they missed out on this royalties thanks to a special low tax deal that its former dictator made with a big Russian company. The story goes back quite a long way. Quite a few years ago, I attended a conference looking at Africa tax avoidance, and one of the delegates was talking about how progress in this area wasn't happening. They made some policy progress, but then they discovered that there were these things called fiscal stabilization clauses in oil contracts, which basically gave low tax guarantees and overrode national legislation. So progress in terms of transparency, they were arguing, was limited. And I thought to myself, this issue of low tax guarantees or fiscal stabilization clauses is very interesting. I'd like to one day do something about that. And then about 2.5 years ago, I was working with a great journalist who was coordinator for Sonozo, which is a West African investigative federated center. They kind of are an umbrella organization. And the name of the journalist was Danielle Quiros Lepis. And she was very keen to do some work on Burkina Faso gold companies and looking at the contracts there. And so we started looking at the biggest gold companies in Burkina Faso. And one of these companies was Nordgold. And as we looked through their accounts, which they're a quoted company, or they were at the time, and so we could look through their accounts, and we were looking at the sections in Burkina Faso where they were producing gold. They were producing gold all around the world. But in Burkina Faso, we could see that one of their mines had a very low tax rate, which the company was boasting about to its investors. So we thought, there could be a story in here. And so that's how the story started, really. We started building up the research by, first of all, looking at all of the publicly available accounts that Nordgold produced. And we could see that they had this special fiscal stabilization clause, which they were boasting about in their accounts. So the next step was to, first of all, look at the Burkina Faso legislation to double check what the royalty rates were, because basically Nordgold got a special royalty rate at tobacco, and we had to check how that compared with the national legislation. So we could see that they got a 3% royalty rate no matter what the gold price was, and we could see in national legislation in Burkina Faso, depending on what the gold price was, the royalty rate moved. The higher the price, the higher the royalty rate. We could see that during the last few years, the gold price was pretty high. So the royalty rate was moving to between 4 and 5%, whereas tobacco only had a royalty rate of 3%. So we could see they were benefiting very much from having this fiscal stabilization clause. Now, it wasn't very easy to get the information about how much gold was being produced from this specific mine. We worked with a journalist at L'Economiste du Faso, Elie Kabore, who's a great journalist. He's a member of Sonozo. And he worked with Daniela in order to get information out of the Burkina Faso Ministry of Mines. So we got official production, gold production rates coming out of the Ministry of Mines. And we also got how much royalties tobacco, as well as other gold mines in Burkina Faso, was producing, and we knew that the royalty rate was produced at was just 3%. So it was quite easy to calculate how much gold would be produced if tobacco didn't have a fiscal stabilization clause. If that gold had a royalty rate that all the other mines in Burkina Faso had, and we calculated that difference basically, and that was a team effort. I mean, one of the jobs of journalists is to be fair, and the other big job is to be accurate, so we always have to get a company's view and context, and so once we have the data, we have to fact check it, give it to a couple of experts to make sure that they agree that we're in the right place, and then we contact the company, and I think Daniela and Ellie were the people who contacted Nordgold in Burkina Faso. I think, but I was involved in trying to email their head office, and as well as Daniela. So there was, two organisations working together who were directly talking to the company. So that was kind of quite helpful, actually. And we also needed to understand that this gold contract we needed to understand that Burkina Faso's kind of floating royalty rate was negotiated at a time when there was social unrest in Burkina Faso, where the gold price was going up and yet the economy wasn't benefiting, so they needed to get more money into government coffers. So that's when they did increase the royalty rate. So we did need to understand the wider context of this particular situation. Well, that's part of making a story, part of making a decent, substantial story, is really trying to understand the context in which the country and the company were operating in, as well as the actual social issues linked to what could be seen as a favourable tax rate. I think maybe one of the lessons that journalists and researchers can take from this story is looking at the big mining or extractive industry companies operating in specific countries, and if they are quoted on stock exchanges, then they will be reporting on specific countries where they operate in, and they do actually report quite a lot of detail. So initially, this story got off the ground because the company itself disclosed that they had what they thought was a beneficial tax rate. And that was from publicly available information. So it's really worth understanding the major global companies that are operating in a country that you're focused on, and then reading the reports where they describe the country-specific operations. They're always disclosed in those annual reports, and that can really take you places. Once you have that, then you can then start to ask experts or use your own kind of experience to build up a story. So I think that's probably the primary lesson. The other great thing is that it was good working in a team. We had people working in Burkina Faso, and I was, around who could, I could be a sounding board and, and also direct certain situations as well. So it's good working in a team where there are different people with different experiences.